This podcast was produced by OAR FM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On Air.
Kia ora, and welcome to Diversity Dispatch, your local queer radio show. We're your hosts, Ricky
and Percy, and we're here to bring you the latest in Dunedin queer news, community projects, events, and more.
Sit back, relax, and tune into our fortnightly show hosted on OAR FM.
Let's get started.
Hi, how are you doing, Chicky?
Kia ora, kia ora.
How are you doing, Percy? It's been a minute.
Oof, it's been a very busy couple of months, but we are now in the less busy period. Oh, sorry, you're on mic too, my bad. There we go.
All good. I was like, something spooky's going on here.
Anyway, yeah, so how have you been doing?
I've been doing well. Have had a lot of really important projects that I just can't tell you guys about right now. No, but like seriously, I've had some things that I've been working on, like up and coming drag shows and such. One of which is a competition, which I'm putting a lot of eggs into this particular basket because I'm pretty competitive.
No, that's so real. See, I'm the opposite. I'm like, if there's an element of competition, I will start like crying on stage. I'm very delicate.
I mean, I'm much like that too. But it's like there doesn't have to be a competition element. I just have to be perceived.
Yeah, I need to know that like I was the best.
Yeah,
you know, like I don't need to win anything. I just want everyone to be like, you were great.
Like you would be Q from the recent season of Drag Race if you've seen it.
Oh, I haven't seen it yet, actually. Ooh. It's on my list. I'll definitely check it out. So actually, interestingly enough, kind of chatting about what we've been up to. Is everything looking okay?
Yeah, I'm just having I think something. Maybe actually, no, it's my headphones. Just kidding. You may continue.
Okay, all good. Yeah, we're a little bit rusty coming out of some relatively busy months. So yeah, with that in mind, one of the topics that I've been really keen to talk about actually is autistic burnout. We are a couple of folks with the tism, touch of the tism.
Down with the tism.
Oh hell yeah! And yeah, that is it's interesting because I mean, I don't know if you agree with this, but I definitely feel that autistic burnout is significantly different from regular burnout.
I would even go far as to say that they're not related at all.
Oh, absolutely.
Because like I think like neurotypical or like regular burnout is basically just like I kind of had a stressful day. I guess I'll just sleep in tomorrow and then it's sorted.
Yeah.
But autistic burnout is nothing of the sort.
Yeah. So for those who may not necessarily be cued in on sort of a lot of the discourse that's happening in the, I guess, disabled community around autism and I think also like around like the language that we use when you are not autistic, but you might be experiencing behaviors or symptoms that are similar. It's like kind of like the co-opting of that, which is like a totally like a whole separate conversation.
Yeah.
That being said, yeah, I feel like that that words like burnout and meltdown and things like that are really not being used in the ways that they should be. Like they're definitely sort of being used to describe a lot of neurotypical experiences that are actually, all things considered, pretty normal.
Yeah.
And yeah. I mean, for me at least, the difference between regular burnout, which obviously can be really debilitating, but that's a separate conversation too, is that autistic burnout comes from having to perform as like a quote-unquote normal person, like 24/7. And so getting to the point where you're no longer able to mask sort of autistic traits that might be perceived as socially unacceptable, and then you basically just have an entire breakdown and you cannot function at all because you've been functioning at 110% for so long.
Interesting. You should bring up that percentage because I saw a TikTok somewhat recently that said when people ask you to put in 110%, they were not talking to you.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
so literally. So it's like you're only just clicking now.
Yeah, no, I'm like
110% for like a neurotypical person is like probably 60% of a neurodivergent, or even 40%.
Yeah.
So operating and doing the utmost, like, because obviously that's people taking language literally.
Yeah.
So when people say, 110, we're like, oh, that means 110, right? When everyone else is like, no, that just means like more than me being like mid.
Yeah, it's almost like I remember like growing up, my brother and I used like the NCEA and like university grading scales as like a really good way of kind of measuring energy. So it's kind of like if you imagine that like an achieved is a passing grade, right? And most people just want to sort of get through the day. But if you want to do extra, you have to do a lot more work. And so for me, at least as an autistic person, like functioning in day-to-day society, I'm putting in the effort of an excellence, but I'm only getting like achieved, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because if you're like your struggles, for example, if it's like sensory related, like for me right now, like in the studio, the lights are very bright.
Yeah.
And I've on multiple occasions had to like wear sunglasses inside just to sort of make it through. But like, yeah, if you were in a classroom and everyone's like, well, this is a comfortable environment, but you're like, no, like the lights are too bright. People chattering is too loud for me. I need to like self-soothe with like headphones or whatever. But it's like, oh, you're not allowed to do that, or you're not allowed to do it, or you have to be a robot. It's like, I'm helping y'all by keeping parts of my body busy. So not all of my attention is in the room with us.
Exactly.
Is the attention in the room with us?
But like also there have been, I mean, I can't cite them off the top of my head, but there have been studies that show that doing things like drawing and chewing gum and stuff like that actually do help with average concentration. Because when you look at like teenage development, it's got something to do with it helps you stay focused for the like hour-long or longer periods of classroom time. But kind of to bounce off of that as well, I think a big reason, because for those who may not know, I think, oh man, hopefully I don't get the statistic wrong. I think it's like 70 to 80% of autistic people are unable to work, like just full stop across the board.
I'm pretty sure it's even like, I think it was 85%, because people are quite often like, the 15% of autistic people that are working, like, how are you doing it?
So actually, I because this is one of my like sort of special interests, I really want to break this down. So I actually was watching some very interesting TikToks as well the other day, sort of talking about different ways that the autistic community is kind of perceived by outsiders, basically. And it was really interesting because it didn't use like the low functioning, high functioning model, because I hate that. It was made by a Nazi. We don't. It's not good. So the way that this person described it was as profound autism, which basically means limited or no speech or linguistic ability. You need to be monitored at least 24/7, basically, because you're not capable of performing basic sort of day-to-day tasks without assistance. And so that's actually about 25% of the autistic community. It has profound autism, so they do need a high level of care most of the time. So I think a lot of people think that it's a smaller amount because you don't really see it super often. I don't know where I'm going with this. Hang on. Let me circle back. Anyway, and so for the rest of the community, they're more or less invisible in day-to-day society. But because our current, I guess, social model, especially with work, is based around we'd rather have you sit in the office all weekend and produce a bunch of mediocre crap than do it in 5 minutes to a super high standard, because they prioritize control over people underneath them over like productivity.
And they value the visual for each person within, this corporation, seeing that everyone else is also under control. So it's like it's a sort of a manipulation tactic, or like a conditioning situation.
I mean, you put people in a power structure and you give people more power than others, and they're going to abuse that. Like that's just how we are trained socially as humans currently. I mean, and that's not something that you can sort of just eliminate with like a communal kind of style living necessarily, I think. And so bearing that in mind, have you seen like any of the discourse around quiet quitting?
I have, yeah.
It made me so angry because that was literally like describing me, because I was like, I do all of my work when I get into the office. I work the whole day and then I go home and I don't do anything else. I don't answer emails. I don't answer texts, like nothing. And the fact that that is seen by some employers is like problematic.
Also, like, so you know how a lot of people have sort of been like, everyone's getting diagnosed with ADHD and autism nowadays, and like, back in my day we didn't. It's like, back in your day, you didn't take work home with you. You didn't have like, you know, a device. And I mean, you had a landline, but also like you didn't have like a computer where they're like, by the way, can you also work from home? Can you do XYZ 1, 2, 3, like all these document stuff like before you go to bed or whatever. And then it's like, oh no, accidentally it took too long, or like my kid's sick, so I have to. And then it's just like, there is so much extra stuff on your plate now.
Plus also like the first person in history to ever be diagnosed with autism is still alive. It was not that, it was not that long ago. Beforehand, they would just chuck these people in like mental institutions and essentially just let them rot because we didn't have any research going. This is an actual condition that multiple people experience.
Do you think that the hate towards like the queer community, like homosexuality and stuff, and also like neurodivergence, do you think they're almost one and the same, where they're like, because obviously there's a link between, you know, alternate sexualities and also like neurotypes.
Oh, that's very loud.
Yeah, tunes. So I'm wondering if people would be like, oh, you're a homosexual, so like maybe...
Yeah, I mean...
maybe this means that you're also neurodivergent.
Interestingly enough, like the like medical, like Western medical history essentially does follow that because, well, back in the day it was called transsexualism, but transsexualism, homosexualism, I say in quotations, and like female hysteria were all like legitimate parts of the DSM, and so this is what like medical doctors are training with, and so they are treating sexuality and female emotional labor and autism and all this sort of stuff like they're like curable mental illnesses rather than like lifelong things that we have to deal with as a byproduct of the way that society functions.
Yeah, like assuming that capitalism and the way that everything is working at the moment is perfect, then I suppose those are the only conclusions that they could draw. But it's like, obviously, then nobody's going, no, like, I was going to say higher power, but like not, like on earthly higher power will admit that, you know, they're like, oh, maybe capitalism just doesn't work for these demographics and maybe they should be allowed not to work and to exist and to, because like if that were to happen, then obviously all the people that have been working would be like, hey, but I don't like working either. I mean, it doesn't harm me as much, but yeah.
Because that's the thing as well. Like, I remember I saw a really, really good sort of opinion piece that was essentially like making the world more accessible is beneficial to both the disabled and the able-bodied. Like, it actually, like, it helps everybody. Like, glasses, for example, are a really, like, normalized part of society. But they are a disability aid at the end of the day. Yeah. Not being able to see clearly is a disability. And so, the same kind of consideration just is not reflected towards autistic people.
Yeah.
And so the expectation of you have to act a certain way for at least 8 hours a day, if not longer. And then, you know, and then you basically get home and then you sleep so that you can get up again and work. Like, it's so, like, monotonous.
Also, like, I would compare autistic masking to a person with Tourette's who is being forced to not have any words come out, assuming that that's the type of Tourette's that they have, or to withhold their tics.
Right,
Which, like, long term would either cause them harm or when the tics are allowed to come out, they're much more severe.
Yep.
So it's like there's definitely like a storage of energy or something that is building up when it's not allowed to be like released.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think also, I might have mentioned this before, but there was this like study that was done, I think in the last 10 years or so, looking at like people's perceptions of autistic people versus non-autistic people. Yeah. And the vast majority of all of the neurotypicals rated their autistic like study counterparts as less trustworthy and less reliable and not as smart as compared to their neurotypical sort of other like co-study people.
Which is crazy because like a lot of the neurotypical people that I've met have been like, if someone's taken advantage, it's pardon me, it's usually either a neurotypical person or like a narcissist. Have you experienced burnout? Autistic burnout?
Oh, 100%. And definitely, like, as well, kind of in hindsight, looking back to when I was younger, I was absolutely experiencing it then too.
I feel the exact same way.
I'm like, because I was like, why was I having all of these like massive, essentially temper tantrums? But like they weren't, because they were definitely autistic burnout.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, absolutely.
It's like when I was in high school, there were lots of times where I could not get out of bed. And I was like, I didn't know why. I couldn't, like, I wasn't sick, but like, I was like, there's no chance of me going to school today. And like, I was lucky enough to have a mother that would like come and wake me up and be like, all right, time to go. And I'd be like, it's not happening today.
Yeah.
Like, which like, and like, she wasn't necessarily like, oh, that's fine. Like, there was usually a bit of like, what about, you better not be like this when you're working and stuff. I'm like, I think that's trauma. I think that's traumatizing.
Yeah. Potentially.
Because like I was in full burnout last year from probably February for exactly 6 months, which was interesting because like I did research on it, and basically what people were saying is that burnout takes roughly 6 months to get over.
Yep.
So long as your needs are being met, kind of.
Right.
And then it was almost 6 months to the day, which was crazy. Like, it just, it was, and like in my flat, because obviously I was living with some really good friends, but they did not understand the ins and outs of being autistic, neurodivergent, or, burnout.
Yeah.
So like, while I was resting, I was also hearing a lot of like, you need to get a job. I'm like, I don't need to get a job. Like, I also don't want to get a job.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still technically not working. I mean, I'm doing all this. So, like, I'm doing stuff now, like volunteering. But also, there was something that I saw the other day where there was like if you are in autistic burnout, this is like how you recover from it. So, like, for a lot of people who are neurodivergent or who haven't been through it themselves, won't know what the criteria is. So basically, autistic burnout is the result of being stuck in like a high stress environment for an extended period of time. So like if the stress exceeds certain, like limits,
right,
then you're at risk of, reaching burnout. Because like I have panic attacks. And when I reached burnout last year, I had one really big one. I mean, like, I'd had a few more prior to that, but then this was just like sort of the icing on the cake type thing. And I ended up like lying down on the ground in my bedroom and just staring at the ceiling in silence for probably like 2 hours, which for me is really unusual because usually I have to have headphones in just to like stimulate myself enough to sort of calm down. But this was, all stimulation in my room was just at zero. Yep. Including my whole body and just everything. So I was just like, just out of it. Yeah. So for back to the like criteria to recover, you need to have all of your needs met. You need to not have any what's the word? Like a to-do list. There needs to be nothing.
No like tasks.
Yeah, nothing, no tasks, nothing, no guilt. So, like, no obligations was the word I was looking for. So, no obligations, nothing that would require you to expend more energy than you have. Yeah, so you need to stay under the stress ceiling, within the stress ceiling for extended periods of time so that your body can actually just relax and you're essentially telling your nervous system that we're not in danger now. You can rest. And it's like, an autistic person going through this, they need to be doing literally anything they want and nothing that they don't want. So, like video games, writing, drawing, sleeping. I mean, initially I was doing literally nothing. I was like, not even exercising.
There's a high expectation that when you are not working, you should be doing something else that's productive. And I really hate that.
But for a neurodivergent person, doing something that is leisurely
Yep.
or relaxing is productive.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the problem that arises there is that for the vast majority of autistic people, that's just not doable.
Yeah.
You know, like, I know that even for myself, like, I would love to not be working at the moment, but I'm traveling, and so I have to save money for that.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, most other people are in some kind of, like, you know, financial insecurity situation. Just demographically speaking, disabled people are more likely to, because it's harder to have a job and it's harder to have, like, accessible stuff in your job.
Also to have a job that not only pays you enough to pay for your life, but also to save money towards improving your life, but also having that at a job that doesn't have a ticking time bomb on it because you are constantly having to go over your threshold, whether it's to act like a different person every day at work, just because, like, if you were to stim or to show your, like, true autistic self, then people would be like, we like, back to that the study you said where people are like, I don't trust that person as much. I don't there's a lot of moving cogs.
No, absolutely. And also, like, even just things like trying to access care that's specifically for neurodivergent people, or even just getting a diagnosis, that's like $200 to $500 out of pocket if you go private. If you want to go public, good luck.
The amount of undiagnosed neurodivergent people that I know, strictly because they're like, oh, I need to go book in for this thing, but I just haven't gone around to it. I'm like, have you booked in with that person yet? They're like, no, I keep forgetting because I have to, like, go to my job, or, like, I have to sleep for all of this time, and then when I wake up, I'm, like, late for work because, like, they don't have enough time to rest or anything. It's a vicious cycle.
Exactly. And then, like, we get these, like, situations where people, like, perpetuate cycles of, like, trauma and abuse and stuff because they didn't have the access to those resources when they were younger. Like, for example, the whole experience of being neurodivergent and having obviously neurodivergent parents, but they're both like, or at least one of them is like, oh, you know, but everybody does that thing. And it's like, no, actually.
Like, everyone in your family does because it's hereditary.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, why... Yeah, it's interesting because, like, if somebody's parents have not come to terms with their own neurodivergence, then they've been conditioned by the generation above them, which are likely far worse than our own parents. But, sort of... They're repeating certain behaviours that they probably don't even understand why they were there in the first place.
Yeah,
like,
no, exactly.
There needs to be, like, a lot of internal shame released pretty much everywhere surrounding neurodivergence, because it's like basically with neurodivergent people, they are the smartest people I know.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
And it's just like if certain things were taken off their plate, all of which are like mundane tasks, the things that these people, us included, would achieve, an artist who maybe doesn't have to cook their own dinner would therefore be able to hyper-focus on a task throughout that sort of time period. Yeah. It's like, or just even rest or anything.
Yeah, there's like an astronaut, a brain surgeon, a famous artist, like an activist, you know, in every single, I think, neurodivergent person who feels passionately about something. Yeah. But yeah, because they're like structurally, there's just no space allowed for leisure time. And it's like, okay, well, what's the point of all of this technology and all of this advancement if it's just getting us to do more work and less play? Because it's like, how are we supposed to, like, fundamentally what makes us human is like literally our creativity, right? So when you take that away and you create this, like, you know, robotic work environment where everyone has to be the same all the time, what are you left with? Like, there's nothing.
Funny you should say that, because a friend of mine sent me an article. Apparently Cobb & Co., they have these, like, robot waiters now.
Oh, my God.
It's like, so I guess there's less jobs there now, but also, like, you'd probably have to be a robot to do hospo anyway. So.
Yeah. But, like, oh, my God. Yeah, no, it's that sort of stuff, and it's like, yeah, I don't know. I don't really like where things are going, but that's another discussion for another time. Unfortunately, we will have to wrap this one up for today, but there definitely will be more neurodivergence discussions in the future.
I'm keen for part 2 at some point.
Yeah. No, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for listening in, and we will catch you in the next episode.
Bye.
Bye. And that's a wrap for today. Diversity Dispatch airs fortnightly on Thursdays at 5 p.m. So if you like today's episode, then be sure to join us in a couple of weeks for the next installment on OAR FM.
And check out the podcast on oar.org.nz and your favourite podcast platforms. Tune in for more chill chats, fun facts, and upcoming local events on Diversity Dispatch.
This podcast was produced by OAR FM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On the Air.